Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're checking out this mono-blue control deck built around Katara, Waterbending Master, a 2-mana 1/3, saying whenever we cast a spell during an opponent's turn, we get an experience counter, and experience counters stay on players, so even if Katara gets removed, we get to keep all those experience counters for the next time that we can maybe redeploy our commander. And then whenever Katara attacks, we may draw a card for each experience counter we have. If we do, discard a card. So ideally we have at least 2 or more experience counters, so the ability actually starts netting us extra cards. Even at a single experience counter, we can still kind of loot through the deck, so that's always worth doing. So if we take a look at our deck breakdown, I've split it up into a few different categories. We don't need a ton of ramp in this deck, so we only have a few ramp artifacts to maybe discount our spells or make extra mana, since the plan's usually to just play Katara as soon as possible, so then we don't really need to spend turn 2 playing a ramp artifact all that often. We also have some 1-mana instants to just draw a card in the opponent's turn, so these cantrips are still great for just racking up some cheap experience counters. And then we have the largest section in the deck by far, which are the counter spells. So the deck definitely revolves around countering a lot of the opponent's cards, since that's an easy way to get experience with Katara in play, as well as being able to protect Katara with those counter spells in the first place. And then we've got some more bounce spells that can maybe help clear a path for Katara to keep attacking, some auras that can shut down creatures that maybe slipped through the cracks and we weren't able to counter, or maybe to shut down some uncounterable creatures as well. And then most of the creatures in this deck have flash, so we can play them in the opponent's turn and still get more experience. The only card that doesn't have flash is a Wander, and that's because we actively want to be discarding it with Katara, so once it's in the graveyard, our entire team will also have flying, so that also makes it much easier for Katara to keep attacking past opposing blockers. And then finally there's the protection section with lots of 1-mana instants to protect Katara from removal spells, as well as lightning greaves to give her shroud and haste so she can immediately attack as soon as we deploy her. Can also come in handy if she does maybe get removed by some sweepers, then we can still maybe get her back in play and get the cards rolling as soon as possible. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration. Mox Amber is pretty good when we have a cheap commander for 2 mana, and especially if we can also then immediately protect it with our many 1-mana instants. There's Brawl to discount all our instants and sorceries by 1, also pairs well with our counter spells, as we now get to draw and discard if we counter something. There's a Sapphire Medallion, just making all our blue spells cost 1 less. Arcane Signet can immediately tap for a blue, and the Bender's Water Skin can make blue in our turn, and then we get to untap it again in the opponent's turn to have more mana available. Then we have some 1-mana cantrips with Brainstorm, which wants to be paired with some of our shuffle effects, such as our fetch lands. There's Consider, Opts, and Thought Scour. Some of these can also help fill the graveyard to set up some of our flashback cards. And there's Peek to have a look at the opponent's hand and draw a card. Then we've got our counter spells, starting at 1 mana. There's Spell Pierce for non-creature spells, unless the opponent pays 2. Stern Scolding to hit smaller creatures. There's a Strix Serenade, can hit artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers, giving a 2/2 bird in return, whereas Swan Song is very similar, can counter enchantments, instants, and sorceries instead. We've got a Wash Away to cheaply counter an opposing commander. Disdainful Stroke to hit more expensive spells. Mana Leak unless the opponent pays 3. Memory Lapse puts the spell back on top. Miscalculation unless the opponent pays 2, but can also be cycled if it's not useful anymore. Negate to just counter a non-creature spell. Remand gives the spell back, but we get to draw in the meantime. There's Dale's End to counter legends, activated abilities, or triggered abilities. And then the classic counter spell. Then at 3 mana, there's 3 steps ahead, can also maybe sink more mana into it for the additional spree modes. Exclude counters a creature, draws a card. Unwind counters a non-creature, untaps 3 lanes. Force of Negation can be cast for free to counter a non-creature spell and exile it. There's the Charm to either draw 2 or counter a spell, can also maybe steal a 1-mana permanent. Dismiss can counter any spell and draw a card. Rewind can counter any spell and untap up to 4 lanes. Subtlety can be a way to potentially bounce a creature or planeswalker that's on the stack for free, once again by pitching a blue card from our hand. There's Venser, which can return any spell or permanent to its owner's hand, including potentially a land, so another very versatile card. Cryptic Command, speaking of versatile, can counter, return a permanent, tap all opposing creatures, or draw a card. Can choose 2 of those modes, often going for counter draw, but the extra modes can come in handy. And Mystic Confluence, another very versatile one, can also counter unless the opponent pays 3, can bounce a creature or draw a card, and we get to choose 3 modes, potentially choosing the same modes twice. And then we've got our bounce effect, starting at 1 mana with Fading Hope, as well as Into the Floodmaw, which can also bounce non-creature permanents. Cyclonic Rift we usually want to overload, but even for 2 mana it can be fine. Then we've got a few of these auras that we can also play at instant speed thanks to Flash to shut down opposing creatures. There's Eaten by Piranhas. Other insignificance, we occasionally can also exile the creature afterwards if we have colorless mana available. And then there's also Fresh Start, decreasing the creature's power by 5. Then we also have the Drowner to tap a creature down, put a stun counter on it, can maybe even shuffle it back into the opponent's library. There's Ty Lee to tap a creature down and keep it tapped down for as long as we control Ty Lee. Brazen Borrower can bounce something with the Adventure, still a 3/1 flyer with Flash afterwards. And Aetherize can bounce all attacking creatures back to their owner's hand, can also be pretty decent if we maybe fall behind early on in the game. And then our other creatures include Fairy Mastermind to punish the opponent for drawing extra cards. There's Malcolm, which can give us a bit of card selection. Snapcaster Mage to give our spells a flashback, similar to the Torrential Gearhulk, which lets us flash a card back for free, so especially powerful with the more expensive counter spells. Then there's the Tidebinder to counter activated or triggered abilities, while also removing all those abilities from that permanent potentially. We mentioned Wander, which we actively want to discard to give the team flying. The Unagi has some built-in protection, forcing the opponent to Waterbend 4 if they want to target it, and it will also punish them for drawing extra cards. There's a 5 mana Teferi, which we can flash in, now forcing the opponent to play at sorcery speed only, so then we don't need to worry about any opposing counter spells. And Wan Shi Tong Librarian, we can also maybe flash in response to a fetch land being sacrificed, as it will punish the opponent for searching their library, as it will pick up an extra counter and let us draw a card each time, and can also sink a bunch of mana into it when we first cast it, so it enters with more counters, and we maybe get to draw a few cards. And then we've got a lot of 1 mana instants to give our commander hexproof, +1/+1, and untap it as well. Magic Damper, Octopus Form, Shore Up. Then Slip Out Back can phase out our creature, give it a +1/+1 counter, so it can also be useful in response to a sweeper. And you see Guard Approach can either give hexproof or tap a creature down, so we can also use it to maybe clear a path for our commander to keep attacking. And then we mentioned Lightning Greaves can equip it for free, giving haste and shroud, so that can also come in handy. And then our mana base is mostly basic islands, but we still have all these blue fetch lands that can fetch either basic island or the one-off Mystic Sanctuary, which when it enters with at least 3 or more islands in play, can now return an instant or sorcery from our graveyard back on top of our library, so we can rebuy an impactful instant that we maybe milled or cast previously, so that can also give us a bit of extra selection. And then Odawara can be channeled as another bounce effect. We've got 2 land destruction effects, mostly to deal with opposing copies of Cavern of Souls, which could make the opponent's creatures uncounterable. And then Gemstone Caverns can also be worth it if we have it in our opening hand while on the draw to catch us back up. And Reliquary Tower, a bit of a win more card, but it can be very fun if you're drawing a ton of cards and don't have to discard to hand size. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, facing the black-white control deck with the Cocoon Keeper, can swap life totals. Can expect a decent amount of removal and board wipes. So this hand's not particularly exciting. This one's a bit better. So turn 1, keep up Serenade. Wanna probably Brainstorm, can shuffle 1 card back. Don't think the Drowner is going to be particularly effective. Alright, as per Sentinel, already potentially a target for Serenade. Yeah, I'm going to cast a fair share of non-creature spells, so sure. So now I could tap out for Katara, and then wait on the Brainstorm. I guess that's reasonable. Swords, another very nice answer. And the bird stays back. I guess our opponent doesn't want to decrease our life total when they're gonna swap it around later. Okay, so can pass. Maybe play One Chi Tong if that lines up. Bitter Blossom, a way to lower their own life total. I guess I can brainstorm a response, maybe find a counter spell. Drowner's not great, so that could go. And then, though Nagi, also likely to get swept up, I feel. So that resolves. And now they're gonna attack. Stern Scolding would have been a nice answer to the Sentinel. Now I think we just pass, as opposed to trying Katara. Can either dismiss or flash in the Librarian. Playing this for x equals 2 would line up a decent block, although can also expect removal. I think it's still worth it. Still get to draw a card at least. And a Massacre for 1 also clears their own token at least. Okay, so I'm still gonna wait on Katara, because right now I would not be able to protect it very well. But now I can still dismiss. And then next turn maybe Katara with Memory Lapse backup. Yeah, I'll just take my turn. Don't think I need to Snapcaster Brainstorm. I can play Katara. And hope they don't remove her in my turn, but given that they didn't do anything, it's somewhat likely. Alright, opponent did nothing. Hits us for 1. And I'll just take my turn. Aetherize, a nice answer to a bunch of tokens. So I don't have any experience counters yet, so there's no real upside to attacking other than hitting my opponent for 1. But we'll keep their life total high. Opponent did have a snuff out after all. So I can Memory Lapse and then force them to maybe draw it again. And then we can dismiss. Could also Aetherize here. Because our opponent's probably going to wait on Snuff Out until it's my turn, so I don't get any experience counters. Yeah, so be it. So take my turn. Can dismiss. And a Wandering Emperor, so I could go Snapcaster plus Serenade to counter it. Yeah, the fact that they're playing all these instants in my turn is not really according to plan. But at least we can Aetherize at some point to deal with all the flyers. Alright, Dark Ritual, so they can play their commander after all. So we're at 7. Okay, can Insignificance the Cocoon Keeper if I'd like, but I can also just wait to Aetherize. Finally get an experience counter. And we still have charm up. Sunfall to wipe the board. We'll say no to that. And now we finally have some experience to work with. Wash away's great. Yeah, if they want to trade for Snapcaster, that's fine by me. Discard. Probably just a lane still. So we're happy with the status quo because we're drawing a ton of cards, although I will need to find an answer to all the 1/1s. Terminus. Let's see, they can exile a creature they control, could be a token, and then it can start reanimating stuff. But it's not like they played many creatures, so that happens. And then do I utter insignificance just to get some more experience? I think that's reasonable. And then I could also exile the enchanted creature for what it's worth. Find Malcolm. Okay, start by attacking. Discard. Probably a Stern Scolding, doesn't seem like they have many cheap creatures. But I was gonna seek an online card with a gate. And I'll trade for Snapcaster. Malcolm is more experience. I guess we have to watch out for the Meathook Massacre as well, draining us to death. So it's not going to be easy. Phyrexian Unlife would prolong their life quite a bit. I think I have to fight over that. End of turn Malcolm. Could also tap down their Fairy Rogue. Could be risky if they have a removal spell left. Better Triumph. So I can Spell Pierce just to tap them out. And then still you see Guard Approach to protect. So now I have 7 experience. So I guess I'll go full control. Go to attacks. See what we get. Nice. Lots of good counter spells. And our opponent's gonna throw in the towel here, understandably. We're just gonna keep drawing more and more cards turn after turn, and our opponent's not gonna get to do much of anything. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Momo friendly Flier, so mono-white Flyers. So the Librarian's going to be pretty huge. Also punishes the opponent for playing the Hawk that can search up more copies. Yeah, this hand's fine. Can also use Field of Ruin as a shuffle effect for Brainstorm. But yeah, don't have a immediate answer to Momo. So for now, I think we go for Katara. And then next turn I could go Signet, keep up Counterspell. Opponent did have the immediate Get Lost. Malcolm can also maybe flash in and block Momo. Oh, Katara's Monument can also discount their white spells. I think I do counter that, because that's going to make a lot of 1/1s on the ground, which can also be a nuisance. Okay, other insignificance, also fine answer to Momo to remove the discount. If I play Katara, I would not be able to get any additional experience counters. So this might be a Librarian turn. Wait for them to attack. Youthful Valkyrie for 1 mana. So I can still make a 3/3 here, basically. Opponent had the mana tithe, that's too bad. So, could try Katara, but won't have Shore Up available. So now we're kind of playing catch-up, which is not where we want to be. So main phase Other Insignificance is an option. Might just have to go for Katara, hope they don't remove it for a turn. Or I can Brainstorm, look for land. But it also feels bad when we're not getting experience off of it. They've already played a Get Lost and a Mana Tithe. Do they have more removal in hand? I guess we'll wait. Maybe trades for Malcolm here, we'll see. Thraben Watcher resolves. So I could go for Malcolm. Shut down the Watcher. Trade for Momo. Alright, now I can go for Katara with Shore Up available. And if I don't need to cast it, I can still Brainstorm for an experience. Momo's back. And Case of the Gateway Express, alright, fine. We've got the perfect answer. And get my first experience, finally. And now Memory Lapse for protection. So Katara can attack. A land would be nice. I guess Teferi's not all that useful, other than the extra experience and a 3/4. Opponent's probably going to be playing at sorcery speed most of the time. And I do want to hit some more land drops. Now our opponent could still solve the case if they attack with 3 or more creatures, so I could also pay 3 mana to exile the Watcher for what it's worth. It's going to be an Underrail. That I probably want a Memory Lapse. And then I could force a shuffle with Field of Ruin before they draw into it again. For now, I think I do get rid of the Watcher so they can't solve the case. And then I can still Brainstorm. Could have maybe Brainstormed first. Just want the experience. Drowner's not bad. So I could put a stop here so I can shuffle with Field of Ruin, hit the Nykthos, which they luckily played. So we get rid of the cards we brainstormed on the top of our deck. Take my draw. Attack, draw 3, discard. And Sanctuary should be effective. So let go of basic islands. And then what do I want to get back? Just Counterspell probably. Pass a turn, I don't think I need to go exploring just yet. So I can Drowner the Angel, and then, yeah, Momo's not a threat, can counter their next couple creatures they play, and completely take over with Katara. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Rofellos, Llanowar Emissary. So at least because we're on the play, we can maybe rely on Tail's End to counter their commander. Don't expect Octopus form to be all that necessary, but it can't hurt. So yeah, we'll give this a try. The only drawback here with having to keep up Tail's End is that I maybe don't get to play Katara, but because I have Fading Hope, maybe it's okay to let them resolve Rofellos. They have an Exploration to play extra lands as well. Yeah, let's go for Katara. And then I can wait until their turn to bounce Rofellos, so I get the extra experience as well. Make sure to do it in upkeep so they can't use the mana from Rofellos in their main phase. Alright, opponent's gonna Green Suns for 2 instead. I'm getting a Frenzied Baloth, cannot be countered, and creature spells cannot be countered. Yeah, that's gonna be problematic. Although Eaten by Piranhas can shut it down. So, yeah, let's pass a turn. If they attack, I could also just pump Katara with an Octopus form. So, I'm gonna let that resolve. Hope the Baloth attacks. It does not. In which case... yeah, I think I bounce Rofellos, Eaten by Piranhas, the Baloth. So let's start by trying to shut down the Baloth in case they have a protection spell. So now I can once again counter their green spells. Bounce Rofellos. And Opt is fine, drawing a land would be better. But it is a way to get more experience, but I think we'll get enough experience as is. So Katara can attack, draw 2 discards, so we're already getting an additional card in the exchange. And Baloth jumping. Nope, reconsiders. Maybe they can remove the enchantment and still make their stuff uncounterable later. And Birds resolves. Rofellos does not. And our opponent's gonna scoop it up, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Rev Tithe Extractor, 4 mana 3/3. Can give Death Touch. And then make some treasures, maybe steal some of our cards. Okay, our hand is reasonable. Slip out the back against mono black to protect Katara's importance. So we'll try. Opponent could also have some discard spells, and they start with the Gemstone Caverns, that's lucky. So opponent's the one on the play now. So turn 1 Mindstone. Don't know if I have the luxury to wait on Katara with Slip Out the Back, but I guess I'll still go for a Brawl first. And yeah, Preacher's also the type of card that can take over by itself. And now Gix can also draw more cards. So what I could do is block and then slip out the back. Just to prevent my opponent from drawing an extra card. And get an experience counter, as well as a +1 counter. Mox Amber sets up the Fairy. Can wait to flash it in during the opponent's turn. And our opponent could have still double blocked, so the attack wasn't really worth it. So Teferi doesn't really change anything here. So they get to draw. Transformer's fine. Although countering it just for the extra experience could be worth it. And then I could have even generated an extra mana, but that's fine. And a Bloodletter, yeah, that's a big boy. Okay, I mean I can't counter it, so I'll go for Teferi. So I have 3 experience counters. If I want to try attacking with Katara in the hopes of finding some answers, could be worth a shot. Can always replay her. Tidebinder can maybe counter a Gix trigger. Alright, opponent just jumps with a 1-1, so they're maybe scared. Yeah, the Tidebinder's got a lot of creatures it can target potentially. Shutting down Preacher means it also loses Death Touch, so I can block it profitably. Yeah, let's try that actually. Don't have to worry about instants because of Teferi. And Lightning Greaves resolves. Probably should have gone for Mastermind in the meantime to draw an extra card off the Gix trigger. Adrana. Okay, let's see if we can maybe find some answers. Strix Serenade would still give them a 2/2 flyer. 2/3 flying first strike. I can keep the Serenade and just not cast it and go for Mastermind instead. Sure. And Gix has Shroud, and a Fresh Start is a decent answer to a Bloodletter potentially. So Katara lets me draw 6, that seems worth it. And if they double block, I could also Fresh Start on Drana, but we'll see what we draw first. Okay, a couple more protection spells. Alright, opponent lets damage happen. So then I think the plan is Fresh Start on the Bloodletter at some point, and then we can maybe line up a block and pump up our Flyer. This is a Blinkmoth Nexus. Dran only triggers when she deals combat damage. So I think step 1... Fresh Start on the Bloodletter. Also lets me block it. And then we can Octopus form the Mastermind. And go to blocks. And Magic Damper. Because of Teferi, again, we don't have to worry about any instants. So Bloodletter down, Drana's dealt with. Gix doesn't get to draw any extra cards. And we now have 9 experience counters. Ooh, Gix activating the ability, which I can counter with Tail's End. Let's go. And let's just untap, go to attacks as soon as possible, but our opponent's not going to give us the satisfaction to draw 10. I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Azusa. Opponent's going to be ramping into some large creatures. Our hand has Utter Insignificance, which is a way to shut down Azusa, but yeah, I don't really love the rest of my hand. Don't expect a lot of removal where I need Octopus form. This seems better. So we can get Katara in play as soon as possible, and then, since we're on the play, I can even try and counter Azusa if I'd like. Beanstalk to provide the opponent with extra cards. So, won't play the Water Skin just yet, but next turn I can. And this is just an attack for 1. Don't want to discard, even though we have Wander that we actively want in the graveyard. So, let's just Tail's End for now. Remand can hit something more expensive. Play the Water Skin. Now I can attack. Discard Wander. And then we can maybe Remind. Maybe Brainstorm, just for the experience. Verdant Mastery. Opponent does still get to draw a card here. So they would give me 1 extra land. They get 1 in hand, 2 in play. That's a little scary. Yeah, let's just remind it. Next turn I can Cryptic Command. They had to discard to hand size as well. Okay, found some flash creatures. And our opponent's gonna scoop it up here. Yeah, we're pretty far ahead already. Had some good answers left, and experience counters only go up, so as the game progresses, our opponent's gonna fall further and further behind. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Azula, so definitely a must counter commander. Our hand's got Lightning Greaves to protect Katara, so yeah, this hand's got potential. We might get hit by a discard spell to take the Greaves before we can deploy it. Otherwise, that's probably where I'll start. Of course, Red could also destroy artifacts, so it's not guaranteed to stick around. If they play a ramp card, I may not be able to tap out for Katara, because I'll need to keep up an answer for Fire Lord Azula instead. And our opponent does have the Signet. Okay, so we'll have to be a little bit more patient. Utter Insignificance would also be a nice answer for Azula. They might have to take out their own commander. Opponent did not have the land. Although now if I go for Katara, they could have instant speed removal before I get to equip the Greaves. So then we're not really making any progress. So I really want them to be the ones that tap out first. Thrill, alright. So they still made good use of their mana. Gonna let that resolve. Interesting that they're running Thassa's Oracle. So are they planning to draw their entire deck somehow? I doubt they're just gonna tap out for Azula here, but we'll see. It's gonna be a Firebending Student. Not the end of the world, although I could still mana leak it. Fine. Maybe they'll fight back. A Redirect Lightning, yeah, also works on counter spells. So they can redirect the mana leak to the Redirect Lightning. Okay, so the student resolves, unless I want to counterspell it, but I don't think we care enough. Ooh, nice, Teferi. Yeah, that's a game changer. Opponent can only cast spells anytime they can cast a sorcery. So then they cannot really make use of the firebending mana either, so that kinda shuts down Azula. So I could try and cast it, put the boots on it now, so it's got haste and shroud. Small chance they have an edict effect to make me sacrifice it, or some sweeper. So the safest thing might still be to wait and play it end of turn. Hoping it doesn't get countered. And then once it's in play, we can protect it with our counter spells, like our life depends on it. So even though we could try to ambush the student, it does not seem worth it. Opponent passes with 5 mana up. If they counter to Fairy, I would be pretty sad. But it would open up the window for Katara to maybe get in there. If I draw lands, I can play Katara and still rewind, so then I'll still have my other mana up. Let's just be patient. Did find the land. So we could kind of run it back, try and get some mileage out of Teferi. Or I could go for Katara, try and equip Greaves, rewind if they remove it. And then still at least have Counterspell up. I think I go for Teferi. Born Upon a Wind lets them play things as though they had Flash. Although if I now just play Teferi, that would stop that as well. But the problem is I can't play Teferi with Counterspell backup yet. So I think we let that slide. And Bergi, okay, so they are definitely trying to storm off in some capacity. Bergi resolves. Yeah, pretty interesting game so far, despite not many spells getting cast. So I'm just gonna keep on being patient. So now I can Teferi with Counterspell backup. Of course, once Teferi's in play, they cannot cast instants anymore. So it's mostly that we want to counter an opposing Counterspell. Now the Librarian. That's gonna put some pressure on us, and Insignificance not a great answer since it still enters with a bunch of counters. Now could be a fine window for Teferi, and then I can still protect it with Counterspell. I'll just wait. Can maybe ambush Bergi now. Arena of Glory to give Azula haste. But they're still not going to go for it. Alright, I think it's time. Once the fairy's in play, we don't need to worry about instants anymore. Dark Ritual in response, okay. And High Fae Trickster. Can play things as though they had Flash. Doesn't really stop the fairy's effect from slowing them down. It is still a 4/2 flyer. So Teferi resolves. Can go to blocks. Firebending mana goes away. And they can try and remove Teferi at sorcery speed. And we'll counter. And Zuko is next. Okay, so I can now protect the fairy. And then I just need to find a way to deal with the flyers. Other Insignificance can make them lose flying. Can also technically exile the creature afterwards with the Reliquary Tower. Heuristic Study. I just want to get my experience up, so I'll counter. Opponent goes to attackers. So I can make this a 4/4 without flying. Or I can just eat the Trickster. I think I get rid of the Trickster for now, so I can block it. Alternatively, I can take 8 and then I can exile the Librarian. But then I'm still facing the Trickster, so I'll just do this. I guess upside of going for Librarian is that it doesn't block Katara. Okay, I think I'm down to still attack just to draw 2, maybe find some instant speed bound spell along the way. Thought Scour. I probably want to cast in the opponent's turn. And replay Katara for 4. And pass a turn. Opponent can always play a hasty Azula, but at least we don't have to worry about Azula copying their spells. Medallion's fine. And I guess we'll Thought Scour, milling myself. Draw Snapcaster Mage, okay. So Snapcaster on a counterspell is an option. Could also Snapcaster Thought Scour just to get more experience. Mill myself. And draw Water Skin. And a land. Alright, so I need this draw from Katara to be effective. You see a guard approach can tap down the Librarian at least. And I can always replay a hasty Katara in the future. If I play Katara now, what happens? I would have 3 mana left. Could be good enough. Opponent's going to make their next spell uncounterable. Witchclaw Talisman. Okay. So yeah, remind counters, unlike Reprieve. So that happens. They might be going for a burn spell, who knows. Maybe they want a sweeper to get rid of the fairy. I guess I hadn't clocked Mistrais Village in the mana base. Does definitely make a difference in the matchup. So they found the card they want. And it's Lightning Bolt on Katara. So I can counter that with a Remand. Just to keep Katara in play for now, and then tap down the Librarian with the Sea Guard approach as opposed to taking 4 and using this to protect Katara. And now we've got another way to potentially tap down their creature next turn. Firebending Student attacks, but they cannot lightning bolts because of the fairy, and they won't have the mana second main, so it's gonna go away. And yeah, opponent scoops it up. Next turn I get to attack with Katara, draw 7 cards, plus I could even tutor whatever I want. And with Cryptic, maybe tapping their team down, we can buy ourselves more time to find a better answer for the Librarian. So the only card I'm concerned about here is the Mistrise Village, potentially setting up some lethal burn spell. But we should be able to find a lot of resources in the meantime to try and deal with it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Tifa, which is the type of card that can win a game very quickly. I have a bounce spell and multiple cheap counters, so yeah, this could work. Would have been nice to be on the play, so we have potentially a 2-mana answer to their commander, but might have to bounce it first. And then I don't think I'm gonna hang on to the Mystic Sanctuary. You see, Guard Approach can also tap down Tifa for what it's worth. So, do we think our opponent can already present lethal next turn? 3 cards in hand. It's certainly possible. Subtlety could also be a free counterspell for a creature. Doesn't stop pump spells and land drops. So it's a bit of a risk to tap out for Katara. I think I'm gonna play it safe here. Just keep up my 2-mana instance. And then maybe try and bounce Tifa. They did not play a pump spell before getting the landfall triggers. They could still have an instant speed protection spell in hand as well. So if this is just an attack for 8, I'll take it. Although I may as well try and bounce Tifa now, while they can't replay her. That works. Okay, so now I could go for Brawl, keep up Mana Leak and Miscalculation, although they might be able to pay for it, although I could still Subtlety. So maybe I just go for Katara then, if the plan is to Subtlety anyways. Mana Leak might have worked, but oh well. And then what do we get rid of? I think Wanderer is going to be useful. Maybe Miscalculation at this point, or Brawl. Get an experience counter. They can put Tifa back on top or back in the command zone. And then Katara can attack, discarding Wanderer next turn. Kami considers an attack, possible they have a pump spell. Okay, let's go ahead and attack. And since we know they're drawing Tifa, they're not going to be able to pay for Mana Leak once again. So that should be effective. And before blockers, Katara flies. Not opposed to firing off some of these 1-mana instants just to get more experience counters. But we'll see how things line up. Start with a Mana Leak. And our opponent's gonna scoop it up, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Rashmi, Etertnities Crafter. My hand seems fine. Not exactly sure what to expect. Of course, green's gonna have some ramp, And then Rashmi can provide a lot of card advantage. Hopefully Katara can stick the landing. Next turn we could keep up Unwind to protect her. And if we don't need to play it, there's some other 3 mana options available. Glimpse for an extra forest. Alright, that's fine. Can attack. Not gonna draw, since then I would have to discard. And then Ty Lee could also tap down a creature, but of course not the best answer to Rashmi. They are gonna run out their commander. So yeah, don't actually have the best answer necessarily. I think I just play the Librarian for 1. This also would have been a fine answer in response to a Glimpse, but we didn't have it available. Okay, now at least I have an experience counter, so I could attack. And now Eaten by Piranhas, a nice answer to Rashmi. So I might want to main phase shut that down, even though I don't get the experience counter that way. And then I think Ty Lee can go. So if they block, we can just finish off Rashmi by turning it into a 1/1. Would still probably let damage happen first, so we can go Water Skin into Eaten by Piranhas. Alright, opponent's gonna take it, playing it safe. So now do I just pass with Cryptic and Dismiss up? Opponent would still get value of Rashmi. I think we gotta shut her down. Even if that means not having a counter spell up in the opponent's turn. So now they could resolve something scary, but then I could always bounce it with a Cryptic command as well. And Defense of the Heart. Only scary once we have 3 or more creatures in play. So that's fine. If they want to jump with Rashmi, that's fine by me. Probably let go of Spell Pierce. Because yeah, now we can pretty easily just counter Rashmi if they try and replay her. And I don't need to cast more creatures here. Start with a Dismiss. And draw 2, discard. Can let go of maybe the land. Is that greedy? I think we have enough mana. And I want the experience from Thought Scour. Ooh, Cavern of Souls. That one's pretty relevant here. Can make their elves uncounterable, including Rashmi. Although they're still a mana away from casting it. So finding one of our Demolition Field effects to blow up the cavern would be nice. And a Titan, at least that one I can counter. And let me start with maybe a Remand. Or I could exclude just to get the extra card. Let's start with the Thought Scour, how about that? Stern Scolding. Yeah, let's exclude. At least I can still remand non-creature spells. Subtlety, that's a way around Cavern of Souls. So that's neat. Alright, let's attack. Draw 4, discard. Can maybe find a Reliquary Tower. So nothing I need to cast main phase. So we even have a decent answer to Rashmi. Can just hardcast Subtlety as well. Although I guess the problem with hardcasting is that I would then need to deal with Defense of the Heart, otherwise opponent gets to tutor up a creature. Into the Royal Katara with Kicker. Let's unwind. Probably should have actually tapped to land here. Now it's probably too late, because I get to untap 3 lands, so the Water Skin tapping for mana means I don't get the full benefit from untapping 3 lands. Alright, let me just tap an extra land just in case. Alright, and our opponent's gonna scoop it up, so yeah, next turn could draw 5 cards, discard, and even though we're not dealing a ton of damage, we're still making progress, and at some point I could again bounce Defense the Heart with a Cryptic Command, for instance, and then we don't need to worry about it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Vivi, blue-red. My hand is reasonable. Have some good answers to Vivi. Probably start with a tapped Sanctuary here, so I don't have to deal with the tapped land later in case I don't draw more islands. Debating whether or not I want to play Katara on 2, or if I wait for Spell Pierce backup. I think I'll wait. Can also Fading Hope my own creature. And a Signet we can probably just remand. If they replay it next turn, I can still Spell Pierce it. And I wash away also an answer to Vivi, which I could also Fading Hope. Let's see how this goes. Opponent replays a Signet. They would have to have pretty much Lightning Bolt to punish me for Spell Piercing here. Get my first experience counter. That works. Did seem like they maybe had their own Spell Pierce in hand. But yeah, let's get in for 1, draw, discard. And maybe Fading Hope's not needed. Don't mind getting the Medallion in play. Strict Serenade, countering the artifact. Fair enough. Can still wash away Vivi. It's gonna be an Anger of the Gods. That's too bad. Alright. That happens. So keeping the bounce spell could have worked out. I think I try Katara again with Wash Away Up. And hope they try and go for their commander as opposed to removing Katara again. Treasure Cruise not good enough, so their hand must be pretty stacked. Even if they counter back, it's not a disaster since Fresh Start can answer Vivi. That works. And if I get to untap, I can protect Katara while leveraging the extra cards. Okay, those are all great. What don't I like? Maybe it's Fresh Start, because I can just counter Vivi. Let's go with the Exclude. And I'll even play the Librarian for X equals 0 just to get it down, get more experience. And then we get to untap with 3 hard counters in hand pretty much, so that should be an easy game to win. So we got to see this mono blue build of Katara in action. And yeah, the experience counters are a pretty messed up mechanic. Getting to keep the experience even if your commander gets removed means that sooner or later you will get to stick your commander, and in this case, if we get to attack with a few experience counters, we can very quickly rack up a ton of card advantage, which is just going to keep on snowballing as the game progresses. Now, the deck, of course, will still have some weaknesses. Any spells that are uncounterable, cards like Cavern of Souls or Delighted Halfling can be a nightmare for blue decks to deal with, but we still have those auras, which can maybe shut down creatures that can slip through the cracks, or we can just shut down a card like Halfling to begin with. So we still have some answers, but any deck that can very quickly put a lot of creatures in play can also make it harder for us to attack with Katara profitably, so we can keep drawing cards. So if the opponent can just put a large enough creature in front of her, then we might struggle to keep drawing cards as well. So definitely not a perfect strategy by any means, but yeah, if you get to enact your game plan, the opponent's not going to be all too happy. So for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.